All right, I guess that's it. Welcome everyone to the Economic and Community Development Committee of the Common Council, regular meeting of July 6, 2023. And we'll call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Roll call with us is Ms. Shanahan, Ms. Smith, myself, John Kites, the chair, and as of right now, that's all we have, but we're expecting others to join. And now we will go to public participation. And Sabrina, did anyone pop up to speak?
Yes, there are 3 people in the attendees list. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And we have one individual who already has their hand raised, and that is Miss Diane Loricella. Diane, I'm gonna allow you to talk. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Chairman Kites. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. For tonight's meeting, you have an item on your agenda related to the waterfront industrial zone study that has been done and completed or is in draft form. And it states tonight that you are going to be voting on it. I have been very interested in the back and forth and the discussions about and the difficult discussions about what we can see in a crystal ball to see into the future. The thing is, any proper decision-making must be based upon giving the Common Council, made up of lay people, the proper foundation and basis of some of the items that are in the report. On page 44 out of the 187 pages of the report, it is stated under the paragraph called brownfields and contamination, it is common and known that in most formerly or currently industrial areas that over time and the buildup of chemicals and substances converts the site and the potential even adjacent land into a brownfield. However, at this time, according to the EPA, there are no potential or confirmed brownfields that are relevant to the study area. That is false. And I have mentioned this during the public meetings of UTIL. And so the staff and some of you have heard me state this. It is false. And if UTIL has not found and done their due diligence, the city staff, some of the older timers, also know about some sites that are active brownfields within the study area. Now, I'm not surprised, but I am somewhat disappointed that no one, after I spoke about specific sites, both publicly, mostly privately held, no one bothered to pick up the phone and try to reach me so I could help them find those lists, some of which one called a P5 list. That is what the Department of Environmental Protection hired me to help them find old industrial sites in Norwalk and Fairfield County. And there are some listed brownfields. Even the EPA should know about at least one, and that is on Platt Street. And it is known to a lot of people in Norwalk. So I don't know what the reason is that this statement, this on page 44 was made, but it needs to be extracted because it is false, patently false. And there is also an effort made, and I did look at on page 16 out of the 41 page discussion of in the appendices, and I very much like the way it was broken down. It made it easier to read. The East Side Mini Industrial Marina District, page 8 out of the 41 pages of the appendices. I guess it's called section 4, the East Bank Marina Pocket. That is where the particular area, which I think is a terrific location for economic development, well, some of it has a pollution problem that has never been addressed properly. And so I think that you need, in order, my recollection of economic development, and I have worked for several of the developers that you list up front in the report. I've offered, and they've hired me to help them with advice on certain things related to the history of pollution in Norwalk. So I think that this is not ready for prime time yet, unfortunately. Mr. Chairman, and I hope you will take my suggestion seriously. It is I think, egregious oversight. And lastly, I just wanted to say that the study committee that looked at helping with the waterfront industrial zone study, I thank them for their time, but there was discussion about a map that had been included brownfield site or contaminated sites. They decided to totally, I think it's still deleted, it's left out because one of those members, and I won't name them yet, stated that it looked kind of icky to have these polluted sites that were making people aware of polluted sites. Well, quite frankly, the site underlying off of Harbor Avenue is underlain with coal tar and will never be redeveloped in our lifetime because coal tar is too expensive to remove. That's an old that's an old coal gasification plant that closed in the turn of the century. And that is why Eversource and Yankee Gas will never sell it because they own it. They own the contamination. So, and that is not listed and it is within your study area. So I think we have to go back to the drawing board and make this report a little more honest about the pollution issues. It needs more than just a sentence or two about, oh, maybe there's some historic problem. I think we need to be a little more prescriptive here. And at the very least, get rid of the sentence that I cited on page 44. I think it's terrific that this study was done, but let's not disavow our industrial history. I wish we had more clean industry and more industry and not get rid of so many industrial zones, but we need to address the contamination that still remains, including Oyster Shell Park, which has never been properly closed, quite frankly. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina, do we have anyone else with their hand up?
If you would like to speak, please raise your hand so we can promote you so you can unmute yourself. All right, Mr. Rich Bonifant, you should be allowed to unmute yourself now.
Rich Bonifant, Park Hill Avenue. Just want to say hi to the committee and Mr. Chairman. All right. On planning and zoning with the waterfront industrial studies, I'm going to be I'm not getting into the details, but if this is an agenda to push the boatyards off and build apartments, I'm not for that. Okay. You can look deeper into your all your paperwork, but if this is an agenda to push the boatyards off, I'm not in favor. And the other one on transportation and mobility, number 2, I just want to, yeah, that's great with walkability and bikeability, but I just want to get my car from one side of town to the other and make sure that there's a way to do that without avoiding Wall Street. Okay, thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Anyone else, Sabrina?
If you'd like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. Going once, going twice. I think we're good, John.
All right, thank you. And let the record show a new to the committee, new to the council, Mr. Jim Frere has joined us this evening. Good evening, Jim. Pleasure to meet you. Welcome. So that means we do have a quorum, so we can move on and vote on items. And that first item being administration is the approval of the minutes of June 1st, 2023. Before I call for the vote, any corrections, deletions, omissions? Okay, seeing none, I will now call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. Great, and abstentions?
I'll abstain as my first vote.
Thank you. Let the record show Mr. Frere abstains. The minutes are approved. Great. So now moving on to new business. Item 2A1 is to authorize Mayor Rilling to execute any and all documentation to ratify and approve the waterfront industrial zone study. Would someone like to move that item? Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Okay, Mr. Kleppen, the floor, are you with us still?
I am.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
There's only 5 of us, so hopefully I'm visible tonight.
You are visible, of course. So yeah, if you could please update us on what's been changed since we last met and where we are at.
Sure, and if you don't mind, I'll just address Ms. Loricella's comments. So there, I don't doubt that there's a brownfield or multiple brownfields in and around the harbor or in the industrial areas. However, when we searched the databases that were available, there was no confirmed sites on there. I'm happy to go back and look again, but that's the reason why we didn't include those. There was a map that the redevelopment agency had done decades ago that showed several potential brownfield sites, but there was no source available for that data. So we said we're not going to include something that's not verifiable, especially because if even one of those properties wasn't a brownfield and we put in a map into a city plan that said it was a brownfield, I think that's kind of a problem for those property owners, and not only from a liability standpoint, from a public relations standpoint. So that's why we just didn't have any actionable data. So happy to go back and double check that. But I think the most important point is it's not germane to any of the recommendations within the plan. If a site's a brownfield site, and having spent the first nearly 8 years of my professional life doing phase 1 and phase 2 site investigations on brownfields and Superfund sites, I can tell you that the Connecticut Transfer Act will require site investigations on any potential site that had contamination based on its prior uses. So that will get reviewed and looked at prior to any sale or transfer of the property. So I don't think that's really something we have to worry about too much. I did provide the committee with 2 memos, one being a memo kind of explaining the changes, which I think was what we were in line with what we talked about at the last couple of meetings. And the second memo was a memo authored, assuming you're okay with it, from this body to the Planning and Zoning Commission, because as you'll recall, there was the initial impetus for this was a referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the Common Council on an amendment to the Plan of Conservation and Development. So we start with this body getting its blessing prior to going on to full council. And then once that input's made, it goes back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration for the final public hearing and adoption to any amendments to the Plan of Conservation and Development. That's kind of it in a broad nutshell.
I guess I'll start. Can you get into a little bit of the detail on how you addressed the concerns of the committee over the last several months and where we are with that?
Sure. Let me find the right window on my computer and I can pull up the memo with the maps. So this is I think this area probably got the most conversation. Do you need me to zoom out, zoom in, or is that okay?
I can see it. I don't know if it's on the rest of the committee.
Okay. So this area, I think, probably got the most conversation. Water Street also got quite a bit of conversation, but you'll recall that we met several times to talk about different scenarios for this area. There was a lot of talk about, if you can see my cursor, particularly as you get along the waterfront areas, kind of to the east of Harbor Ave, and then wrapping up towards Commerce Street. Those properties are challenged for a lot of reasons. So one of the key things is that these properties right through here, a lot of these are King Industry properties right now through here. They sit, they're right on the water. They're well below the street grade. And they also have this, the railroad line runs right through there. So given the challenges with the property, redevelopment is going to be a little tricky there to begin with. So the plan options, the final recommendations are to allow this kind of mixed use typology that goes through here. So it could be anything from, it could be technically residential at some point, could be mixed use industrial, could be some kind of hybrid between the two. The plan also has an option for the idea maybe this could be green space. So the idea with multiple options with the plan is, there, say down the road, the city says, you know what, these properties are actually on the market. It might be nice to have a pocket park or some kind of park through here. So we have in our plan that, potentially this could be green space someday. So that helps us with future grant fundings and kind of lines us up for what we want to see in the future. But it also, by having this mixed use typology through here, it allows us to line up the proposed zoning with what we think is preferable for this area going forward. So I think that was kind of the recommendation with that. The proposed zoning is, which was illustrated in the other memo, is called CD5W, which lines up with the zoning that's under public discussion right now. And that's similar to what you could do at the Divine Brothers property today and what's already approved for the ONG site across the street. So that allows for mixed use. It could be like a light manufacturing commercial on the ground floor with residential above. It could be office. It could be a bunch of different things depending on what the market felt was the most appropriate use. Any questions on that area before I move south? Okay. Second area that we discussed for a little less intently was, so what we're looking at here is, we have the walk bridge, up in this purple color is where WPCA is. The property just to the south of that is being taken by the state as part of the walk bridge construction. So this had marina use prior to that. So hopefully this property comes back to the city once the walk bridge project is done. So the plan comes up with two recommended options, similar to what we just talked about. So there's this potential for a mixed use component. So you'd have an activated waterfront where there could be, shops, boardwalks, potential for boating, watercraft activities, all different kinds of uses there. Or it could be, maybe it's a park and maybe it's green space and just, more of a passive use than more intense use. And the proposed zoning with the zoning map is the CD5W again, which lines up with this pink zoning over here, pink classification. And this area is probably the most change from what we talked about initially. Again, just for orientation purposes, Straffolino Bridge, Water Street kind of running north-south. Here is the property we just talked about. The initial plan recommendation was for this whole area to remain the marine commercial use. The committee had expressed a desire to see something that was more fitting and suiting with what's happening inland and what's going on today on Washington Street. So the CD5W zone would allow for more of that mixed use atmosphere, more public access, public amenity near the water. It still requires some sort of water dependency. So there have to be, there's a good chance there's docks available or, public boat launch or small craft launch, something, it's got to maintain that maritime feel to it, but it's not strictly regulated towards a heavier commercial marine use. So that's the reason for the change to the 5W. And those are the three areas in summary.
Yeah, and to that point, Steve, I'm glad to see that we took in consideration not reducing the amount of commercial marine use that follows into the rest of Water Street. I think we've just isolating this area and due to its proximity to the hustle and bustle of the IMAX, Washington Street, and the other areas down there is a smart idea, and I want to thank you and UTIL for taking that the committee's suggestions into consideration.
So just so Joe, the idea with the proposed zoning is that the front piece of this Water Street property could become something different than it is today, but the idea is the rear portion of that would remain that marine commercial with the marinas and the boats, and hopefully boat repair and shell fishing and all those things that are, integral parts of the city and the waterfront.
Right. Are any questions for Steve? Barbara?
Yeah, no questions, but I do just want to thank you, Steve. You know, we really went back and forth with a lot of concerns, and I'm really pleased with where we have come to, particularly on Commerce Street. You know, again, you know, nobody's looking to you know, ask anyone to leave. We're just looking towards the future, you know, and what can become there in the future. So I'm really pleased about that, and you know, just to add on to what John said, I really agree with how you approach the CD5W right there along Water Street. So thank you for it was really a lot of push and pull there, but I really appreciate what you've done. Thanks.
Yep.
And Jessica too. Thanks, Jessica.
Lisa, I can't see you in the boxes. If you have a
Anyway,
question.
I'm here. I do have a question. No, I actually really have a comment as well, which I also want to say thank you to Steve for listening to us and being concerned. And one of the things that I like about it is that there is the opportunity for open space. And as we're doing more of the South Norwalk Resiliency Study, we're recognizing that there's real concern and hazards for flooding. So giving us the ability to have open space in some of these areas close to the river and the sound are really important. So I think it's great that that's built into our planning. So I appreciate that.
What else? All right, now we'll be doing the last step in this process before it reaches the council. It's calling for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. Right, abstentions?
I'm going to abstain at this point since I have not had the background that you folks have had so far. So if you don't mind, I'm going to abstain on this one.
Understood. All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now moving on to transportation, mobility, and parking. We have item 1, which is to authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute a contract via sole source procurement with Stantec Inc. to complete project review, closeout, and requisition request to the Connecticut Department of Transportation for grant reimbursement in the amount not to exceed $60,000 for NRVT Phase 2. Account numbers noted. Would someone like to move that item? Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Okay, I believe we have both Jim and Garrett here with us to talk about this.
Hi, Chairman. Yes, Jim Travers here. I will take the first one. So this is the current phase 2 of the NRVT improvements is from Union Park to New Canaan Avenue. We've been wrapping up construction there. When the city made the decision to work with the vendor out there, we did so without hiring a construction administration. Typically, projects of this size and scale would have a construction administration. It eases the process and ensures timely submissions to DOT. So what we're looking for is to secure the services of Stantec, who was the designer of the project and has been the person or the agency that has been working through the design and the design changes, any modifications throughout that process. So we would engage them to do the final phase of this, which is project, the closeout and the administration, the submission of requisitions to DOT. They would be the best position. They would best position the city for maximum reimbursement for the item. So we think it is very much well spent. You'll see we have been working with them through the last design changes to bring the project to a close. The contractor was provided those change orders today, and we'll be back to work relatively soon. There's not a lot to finish up, so we anxiously await a ribbon cutting for that final phase. But what you're seeing today is just to walk us through the project closeout. Happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, I will now call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2, authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an amendment to increase the Fuss and O'Neill contract by $200,000 for additional transportation, engineering, and related design services for Wall Street corridor improvements. Account number noted. Would someone like to move this item? Thank you, Ms. Smith. You're up. Jim, Garrett?
I'll jump on this one. So good evening, everyone. So this was one of the first neighborhoods that Jim and I actually walked upon joining the city, and took a look at some of the older plans that dated back as far as 1986, and entered into a contract subsequently with Fuss and O'Neill to really get this project off the ground. Since Fuss and O'Neill has been brought on board, we've held a number of different outreach meetings within the community. So the first one, if you remember, was in June 2014 or June 2022. And it was held in the Wall Street Theater. We had a tremendous turnout. We held a subsequent meeting at the library. Again, really great turnout. And over the course of the project, we've been meeting with different stakeholders and businesses throughout the community. So this is looking at a project that's really grown in size, complexity, and scope since its initial inception. Currently, we're estimating the project has a construction cost of about $27 million. So it's grown pretty significantly. Fortunately, we've been able to secure about $21 million in construction funding through different state appropriations, state grants, federal funding, partnerships with the Park Norwalk. So we've got a lot of funding, but the project's grown in complexity. So the proposal that you see before yourself tonight is to really expand the design to cover all those different grant-funded elements of the project and ensure that we're responsive to the different grantors for the project, and to make sure that we really can lock down the scope and design of each of the phases. As you know, this is a really large project, so it will be done in several different phases. But what we also want to make sure we do with the proposal that's before you is that we design them all simultaneously, so we can make sure that we maintain constant coordination with the different stakeholders, the communities, and really have one consistent, cohesive project at the end of the day. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the larger project that you may have.
Yeah, Garrett, speaking to that, when do you see phase one beginning?
So phase one, so really exciting news. We just received authorization to advertise what will be the first phase of the project from the Connecticut Department of Transportation. So that'll be East Wall Street between Main and Brook Street. So we hope to have that out to bid next month. And it has to go through a number of different administrative processes, but we hope, should there be no unforeseen circumstances, that there'll be a shovel in the ground. We'll have a contractor on board by this fall. So it's a really exciting time for the city.
Okay, great. And any talk about eliminating that back-end parking on Wall Street?
So I think what we heard loud and clear through all the public meetings that we held meetings with the business owners and stakeholders is that that isn't desirable. So we've looked at the design, and the design that we most recently showed at the library back in November included the elimination of all of the back and angle parking and returned it to parallel parking. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Another benefit is what we really heard from the community was the really desire for wider sidewalks, and allows us to create some space savings to really make that part of the project.
That's great, man. When it happened, it's the buzz was we reinvented the wheel, but it was retrospect maybe, but it wasn't the best idea.
And I think there's a lot of parking in the neighborhood too, and part of the process is to get better connections to those different parking facilities, whether it's the Yankee Doodle garage, the Mechanic Street lot, to really get these comfortable, safe pedestrian connections. So we'll take advantage of that too.
Chairman, if I could just chime in for a second to add to
Sure.
that, because from the parking authority's perspective, we've been hearing some concerns from the community. We're looking to address that earlier than the project. So we're currently in review of the plans for Wall Street Place, and in order to maintain pedestrian passage through there, we're looking at potentially a shed. So that time would be, we're looking to remove that portion earlier to maintain pedestrian access and return that to parallel parking. And then we are looking at redesigning River Street as well. We've been in conversations with those over there, so that the intent was to do it with the project, but I think that we might have reinvented the wheel, but we have to accept the fact that we have a flat tire, and we're going to fix it.
Yeah, there was ribbon cuttings and press conferences for that one, but I skipped it. So all right, any questions? Barbara?
I think you're muted, Barbara.
Thank you. Yeah, Jim and Garrett, I just really want to commend you for taking this on. It's one of the most exciting projects I think that we've seen it, because it's been needed for so very long. And the fact that you have been able to secure so much of it in grant funding, I'm just bravo to both of you. Thank you so much. I've seen the plans, I've been to the workshops. I'm just so excited, and just thanks so much for your vision and your work on this.
Thank you.
I had one question. Is this 200,000, this additional 200,000, is that included in this year's budget?
Yeah, actually that was included in last year's budget. So it's utilizing existing capital funding.
Approved
that
last
was
year and
previously
this year.
approved.
Okay, great.
And to that point, I mean, I'm someone who grew up on Wall Street, not to, get into too much detail, but both my uncle, my father had shops down there. I mean, it was a lively place. Their stories were back when the 50s, pre-flood of 1955 and all that and that, but I'm starting to see that come back. I mean, there's restaurants down there. I went to dinner the other night, a couple doors down from the theater there. And I mean, I had a great time. It's good to see that there's, a lot of good stuff happening down there, because it was a big lull there for several decades. All right, any other questions? Okay, great. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. Unanimous, great. And last but not least for you guys is number 3, authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an amendment to increase the WSP contract by $25,000 for additional design services for the Base 4 traffic signal upgrade project. Account number noted. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Okay, who's taking this one, guys?
I'll take this one as well. So this is related to a grant-funded project for approximately $3.1 million. It's for a federal grant, a congestion mitigation and air quality reduction project. So what it includes is the installation of 4 new traffic signals, 2 on East Avenue and 2 on West Avenue, and also the upgrade of a number of signals on Route 1. All of these signals will have adaptive traffic control systems, so they'll be responsive to changing demand in traffic, and they'll be able to update their timings to better manage traffic on a real-time basis. So as part of this project, it was designed several years ago. And it was originally put out to bid, but there's a couple items that weren't included in the original design services that we think the previous designer, WSP, would be best suited to address. And these are necessary to allow us to reconcile the grant and meet CONDOT requirements related to that reconciliation process. So the funding that you see before you is just to make sure that the designer can provide final shop drawings, so how all the different traffic signal related structures are fabricated and installed. It also includes optimization at the end of the project. So making sure that, again, this project was designed several years ago. So making sure that when it's in operation in the field, we capture the most recent volumes and tweak the timings as necessary. It's a typical best practice to make sure that the timings match the changing volumes on the roadways. 2023, I think, is the first real normal year for everyone. So we're really excited about that in the traffic industry. And it also includes some as-built surveys for the project. Again, so we can provide that data to CONDOT so that they have the final construction plans, and it incorporates and memorializes any of the changes that were made during design. But all of that is necessary for us to seek full reimbursement for the project.
And Gary, you said 2 on East Avenue and 2 on West Avenue?
Yep, that's correct. 2 full new signal replacements.
Okay.
On 2 on West and 2 on East Avenue. On East Avenue, it is the intersection of East Avenue and Eversley, and then East Avenue and St. John's. And then on West Avenue, West Avenue at Gartner Street. And then there is also a signal that went down, and there's currently just a pedestrian push button that flashes. So that will be replaced with a full overhead traffic signal for pedestrians.
I'm a big fan of this. I mean, anything to, optimize traffic and timings and so forth. I mean, when we were dealing with the mall for all those years, the traffic was obviously a part of the conversation. And I got to tell you, that stretch in front of the mall is, one of the best flowing strips that we have in Norwalk. I mean, everywhere else seems to be, a lot of bottlenecking and so forth. But there's, the smarter the lights are, the better I think it is for everybody.
Yeah, so this grant actually, it rolls out the similar detection that's used on that corridor and similar control system too.
That's great. Any questions? No? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes. Unanimous. Great. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now moving on to item C1, authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute a 3-year lease agreement with Rent a Christmas in the amount not to exceed $138,584, or otherwise $46,195 per year for the Wall Street and South Norwalk Holiday Extravaganza Christmas tree installation and maintenance. Account number noted. Would someone like to move this item? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Sabrina, I believe you'll be speaking to this item this evening.
Yes, I'm here to speak to that item, and so funny to be talking about Christmas in July, but such is life. As you guys recently have heard, we took on a special events coordinator who will be helping us organize a bunch of great events in the city. We have since onboarded her. Her name is Anna Brialt. She's originally from Orlando for school, but was originally from Norwalk and has since moved back and is with us here. So she's bringing her skills that she learned at Disney and in the city of Orlando to Norwalk, to her hometown. So we're really excited to have her.
Is that Michael Descala's sister?
It is. It's his sister's daughter, I believe. So his niece.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Did not know that until after the fact, but small world story. So as we've onboarded her, we've started to talk about all the events that we want to do in the future. And one really successful event that we had in the past was the holiday extravaganzas, which we did last year for the first time in Norwalk's history, really. They were super well attended. We were able to get a lot of funding from the parking authority to support those events. But since we've taken over the responsibility and we have the capital request that was approved in this current fiscal year's budget to support the holiday events and other events in the city. So this is the first request that you will see for this kind of large tree installation that we had at both locations. Last year we did a one-off since we weren't really sure kind of what we were looking at and what we wanted to get for kind of the installations and for the events. So right now we just wanted to make sure that we lock in the trees since they're like the highest demand items. So once we lock those in, we'll be able to have them for the 3 years ongoing. The company will be able to come and install them, take them down, maintain them in case anything happens to them, and also store them for us, which we do not currently have the capacity to store this stuff. So it's great that they offer that service for us as well. So this covers the 3-year contract for just the trees, the ornaments, the toppers, kind of everything associated with that. We're going to have some extra decor, but we're thinking about more creative ways to do it rather than just paying a company. We were thinking of having businesses sponsor kind of certain displays for us for photo opportunities, or have some local artists come out and really design some really cool stuff for us. We want to bring back kind of the SETI vibe of Christmas to Norwalk. So we're going in that direction and hoping we can build those little sceneries kind of throughout Norwalk where these areas and events will happen. So this is the first request that you'll see regarding this event. And I know it's weird to talk about Christmas in July, but that's where we're at. And I hope you guys get to meet Anna soon. I'm sure she'll be at a meeting very soon. But this is kind of the first installation for Christmas that you will see before you.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas in July.
Any questions? All right, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I guess I'm really excited about a lot of things tonight, but those events last year were fabulous. I mean, just so much energy and, bringing the community together to celebrate the holidays, the tree light, it was just fabulous. And so I'm so excited that we're moving forward with this. And I mean, it just makes me feel like I live in a really groovy city, and I'm just thrilled about it.
We're happy to hear that. We're thrilled too. We're really excited. So
Great.
This will be the first of many events, but this will be the one that will hopefully continue on for a while. So.
Did we vote? Yeah, no, not yet. All in favor? There you go. Thanks, Sabrina.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least is the under Building and Code Enforcement, that's to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a one-year contract with Star Inc. Light the Way with 4 options to extend the term for a period of 1 year each in the amount not to exceed $13,000 per year for litter cleanup services within the Wall Street Business District. Account number noted. Would someone like to move that item? Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Hi, Jess, how are you?
Good. How you doing, everybody? Thanks so much
Great.
for being so supportive of all the projects tonight. We're really excited as well to be able to bring all of these things to Norwalk, in addition to also being the #1 community for quality of life and all these other really wonderful things that we're getting, that the city is being recognized for. So this one's a really cool one in my mind. We actually adopted it from the redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency in the past has been working with STAR. It's a 501c3 and the city of Norwalk. And they actually work with persons with disabilities or people with disabilities to be able to help employ them. And in this particular case, we actually have worked with STAR to be able to bring 3 different individuals out to the Wall Street area, as well as 50 Washington and 90 Washington for the last number of years, no more than 3 hours a day, no more than 3 times a week, to actually help us pick up litter and pick up garbage throughout the urban core. It works out to be about $18 per hour. And if you times $18 per hour times the number of hours that they would work each week, times the number of weeks, it comes out to around it comes out to about $8,500. So we know that sometimes before July 4th or before some of the holiday extravaganza events, we'll be asking STAR to help out a little bit more potentially during the buildup for those particular events. And also some of the things that we have planned with farmers markets and some buskers and things like that. So we're asking for an approval for no more than $13,000 for 1 year to work with STAR. And again, we've worked with them for a number of different years. RDA started working with them probably almost a decade ago, and we adopted it about 4 or 5 years ago and brought the contract over. And so wanted to bring it before you to ask for your support in order to be able to help the 501c3 and also be able to help our urban core with looking as good as it possibly can look. So kind of a good story here, and we feel good about working with them.
Any issues with the unions? Because I know they're very temperamental when it comes to things like this. I mean, with DPW,
We haven't heard of any union issues in the past on this particular one. I think that if it was a larger contract or if it was a heavier lift, or maybe not supporting a 501c3, but more of a private LLC or corporation, then I think there might be an issue there, but we haven't heard any pushback on this particular agreement.
Just one comment is this is not a full-time job. This is just on an ad hoc basis or on a specific project basis, right?
That's right. So it's no more than 9 hours a week, and it's 3 people that will be out there with a supervisor, and the supervisor, it's all localized because there's not transit or shuttle included in it. So it's really walking the neighborhood and walking River, Burnell, Wall Street, Isaac, Leonard, Burnell. Oh, I said, so right in that particular area, just because the STAR offices are right in that particular area. So it doesn't include formal part-time employees. It doesn't include formal FTEs in any way, shape, or form. It really is just an agreement to have the 501c3 provide those services to us through a contract.
Yeah, so for that reason, I would expect that unions would not be too concerned about this, aside from the fact that we're doing a great job for STAR in this.
any more questions? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Great, thanks, Jess. And thank you everyone for taking the night out of your this beautiful summer night, and I hope you enjoy your weekend.
Chairman, can I include one more thing just before we hop off?
Sure.
We, part of the MLK Corridor Initiative that we have been running the last couple of years, we heard a lot about the challenges with access to food in South Norwalk and access to fresh fruit and vegetables. And so as part of the special event coordinators role here at the city, we're going to be launching a farmers market down at Ryan Park and bringing fresh food and fresh produce and different crafts down to Ryan Park. The first one will be held on July the 30th, and we are getting organized for that one now, but I wanted to just give a little plug before we hop off the call, because I think, again, a really good story and also being responsive to the community, but we're also want to make sure that we're sharing it with as many people as possible to be able to spread the word. Thanks, Chairman Kenny's.
Well, could you mention the date again on that?
It is Sabrina, is it July 29th?
July 30th,
July
Yep.
30th. It's a
from 10 to 3. And there'll be live music, food vendors, craft vendors, maker vendors, and we're gonna put out a little eating area in front of the music folks as well. So not just a simple market, it's more like a small event.
It's an experience.
Exactly.
I'll be there.
We'll see you there.
We're counting on it.
Oh, yeah, right by the door. All right, everyone, thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend. And a motion to adjourn, all in favor? There it is.
Okay.
Unanimous. Great. All right, have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.